Can you imagine how much energy could be freed if you could let go of all of these self-labels and identities that have kept you small and afraid? Hello there. Have you heard of the concept of the grey man? I found this fascinating. As someone who's quite interested in the human psyche and why we do things, I look into these kind of ideas. Now, the grey man is a tactical maneuver used in the defense forces, and anyone who wants to survive in a shit hits the fan situation. A lot of preppers are aware of the grey man. And it's a way to go unnoticed during hard or scary times when everyone is in fight, flight, freeze. Why would you want to go unnoticed? Well, you might have food saved in your house, and food is scarce now, and people are doing crazy things you would never have expected just to be fed. You might, have the wit or the intelligence to be a leader, but you don't want that to be noticed during these times because people clutch on to anyone that can lead during desperate times. You might just want to go unnoticed in order, and this is the thing, in order to purely survive these situations, because you'll be in danger if you get noticed, all right? So now, obviously, this isn't an everyday scenario. This really is a shit hits the fan situation, and that's why we wouldn't use it all the time. We would adopt this grey man thing. We would be aware that it exists, and we know how to do it when we need it in times of need. How do you start to learn the grey man tactics? Well, if you're someone who's interested in that, you would look out in the world when your day-to-day activities, maybe going for a walk, and you would now begin to notice the people that you would normally not notice. And you would take note, what is it about this person that normally I wouldn't pay any attention to? And how are they different to this other person who straight away I look at and I'm curious about? So you'll always have these two types of people that you notice and people you don't notice. And that's the thing, you won't notice them. So actually consciously learning how to go unnoticed means you want to learn how to notice those unnoticed people and what is it that they do. Now, again, this is just out of pure interest and also curiosity about survival during crazy times. I thought about how this applied to my life. And I thought about my childhood. It made me realize that growing up, I was always the new kid at a new school, and I was often very shy. I was also bullied. I had my ears sticking out. I had chubby cheeks. Kids will find anything to taunt at, and they can be a little bit cruel, but this is what happened to me, and it may have happened to you too. But what happened was I realized that my life, my initial early years where our programming is being crystallized was about me being noticed for the wrong reasons and then being rejected. I was rejected many times because of judgment by groups. I didn't fit in here. I wasn't accepted. I didn't look the part. I didn't act the part. I was too shy. All of these various reasons why we reject kids in social situations. I was rejected a lot. And so what happened, and I found this quite interesting, is as an adult, I adopted the same personality in order to survive. When I say survive, I mean in order to avoid feeling rejected again. And so I became the oddball, the quirky one. And I did it intentionally. Like I said, I adopted this personality. And so when I heard about this grey man concept, it really got me thinking, I've actually been subconsciously operating in the opposite way. I've been intentionally trying to get attention so that I can continue holding on to this oddball, quirky personality so that I will no longer be rejected by someone out of my control, meaning that I chose to be the oddball and they rejected because I chose to be the oddball instead of the other way around. So I had control. This is about a program of control underneath everything. I needed to feel in control of the rejection process. I accepted that I would be rejected before it happened. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So by adopting the oddball, quirky personality type, now I had this self-fulfilling prophecy running round and round, but I felt in control because I knew what was coming. Interesting. This is what I found very enlightening. So all of this, living the opposite of going unnoticed, was me seeking to validate myself, to be acknowledged for all those years that I felt alienated for being different. So really, I'm validating that core wound of rejection. Now, this quirky personality I adopted was simultaneously running with a people pleaser program. You might relate to this. So whilst I'm trying to be the oddball, quirky one to avoid someone choosing to reject me rather than me choosing to be rejected, I also had this people pleasing program running where I needed people to like me and accept me. Two complete parts at odds with each other, an inner conflict. And so you can imagine how much inner trauma and conflict this caused on a daily basis, especially through those early years of going to school and being around new kids all the time, new schools, new kids, having to navigate these two programs running. So what this reminder came up through this gray man concept, learning about that, was that I had to shine awareness on these programs, especially the quirky oddball program that I've been running. I needed to put light into these shadows so that these covert programs could no longer operate the same way. Now, I realized in that moment, just by illuminating or shedding consciousness on the fact that these programs are running, did it enable me to release this program now? Because it was seen. Shadow cannot operate anymore when it is seen. So this helped me see that my self-worth was no longer tied up in external approval. It hasn't been for a little while. So here I am, still operating these programs, but they're redundant now. But I was doing them unconsciously, hardwired, neural habit. Now, all of this is about self-image, if you think about it. Self-image, self-identity created out of core wounding. We all have our self-image created out of these core wounds. This is how our ego or our personality is formed in the first place. So we need to remember that attaching ourselves to our self-image, our self-identity, for self-love or self-worth is giving our power away. So the person that really is free and has peace is someone who's recognized there's been a whole lot of programs running that created their personality. However, they now no longer identify with that small self. It might still be running, but they are free of being attached to the meaning behind that program that's running. So they can now allow themselves to free up that energy, all that energy that we spend a vast amount of energy holding on to these programs to allow them to run. We free up that energy when we start to see we don't need these programs running anymore. Can you imagine how much energy could be freed if you could let go of all of these self-labels and identities that have kept you small and afraid? You'd be far more giving yourself available to spirit, inspiration, guidance, wisdom, intuition, and intelligence. So we release these redundant programs when we see them, just like I did recently. We free up a whole lot of energy and space in our hard drive, pardon the metaphor, and we come back to ourselves, the true higher self. Allowing these programs of the mind, because that's what a personality is, they're programs of the mind, to step aside for a heart-based inner guidance system to come online. Emptiness, stillness, gray man. Stepping aside from this personality that we used to define ourselves and feel safe, and allowing the I am presence to take front and center in your life, to work through you, so that life can be lived through you rather than those personality programs running the show and keeping you small. We no longer need these external approval or self-fulfilling prophecies or cycles of rejection covertly running our lives. We don't need them anymore. We can be grey men, and it doesn't matter. We have great peace in our heart. We're not here to prove anything. So if we don't consciously choose to do this work, part of me realizing that I had these covert programs running, the people pleaser, the quirky oddball program, was the journaling process that I have in my life, was the regular contemplation and questions around, what are my blind spots? Show me my blind spots. Reveal to me where I'm still being run by programming, where I'm still afraid and small. It's an earnest quest that I put out on a daily basis. So if we don't make that a priority in our lives, then you're going to stay triggered by things because you are refusing to look at the shadows that are trying to be heard and seen, to be released. So we can bring in a very loud knock on the door if we don't do this work. That can come in like a big dark night of the soul, where suddenly all that self-image and self-identity we've been clutching onto, it becomes meaningless in a moment. That's very disorientating, very disorientating. The grounding that you had in your personality is suddenly pulled away from you. And that's a hard restart. Many people don't actually recognize what's happening. They just see it as depression. But it is a blessing because you haven't been listening or doing the work consciously. So a big knock on the door might come your way. So instead, choose to make awareness your key tool in this day-to-day evolution of your spirit and your soul. This will help root out those shadow programs that are running, keeping you reacting in life or triggered. And when we free as many programs as we can, we free up so much energy so that we can go towards creation in play, rather than creating out of fear, driven by fear and insecurity. We can be here now to create out of our heart space. Very, very different way of creating than the mind's fearful programming. So I would invite you to use meditation as a tool in this process to invite in higher consciousness or spirit to live through you, rendering those old programs redundant. And you'll free up vast amounts of energy when you start to see the programs that were running within you. I hope this has helped you as much as I've learned from this beautiful little insight. I believe that we can be so free when we really earnestly seek to release all of the programming that we've had wired in all these years. Be here now and be open to be able to receive inspiration in each moment. When we have programs running, we're not able to stop and be still and receive inspiration for our highest evolution. So I would encourage you to do the work. Hope this has been helpful. If you like this, please like, subscribe, and share my work, and have a beautiful day.